So you spoke on a very, very important topic on reperfusion damage. Does this entity really exist in the clinic, sir?
Yes and no. And that is one of the reasons why I've been asked to talk, because reperfusion damage is, if it really exists, is a very important phenomenon, in the sense that in order to cure a myocardial infarction, we need to reperfuse. But it has been shown, at least in the experimental setting, that reperfusion per se, particularly when occurs late, can provoke further damage than benefit. Now, if we can prove that reperfusion damage exists in the clinic, you understand immediately that there is a room or a window of opportunity, because one could reperfuse with something which is aimed at reducing the damage induced by reperfusion. The problem is that in experimental field, we found several possible causes of reperfusion damage, such as readmission of calcium, and therefore a calcium antagonist has been used. But when they've been tested in the clinic, we did not have any real results. Then we thought that oxygen readmitted could cause oxygen-free radicals, therefore being dangerous. And in the experimental field, we tested antioxidant, and they did work. But in the clinic, they didn't. Then we thought that a particular event, which is the opening of a so-called mitochondrial pore, is the cause of reperfusion damage. And we tested also in the clinic the cyclosporin, which could block the opening of the mitochondrial pore and results in a benefit. There was a study showing clear benefit in terms of less CPK release when cyclosporin was provided at the time of primary angioplasty. A lot of excitement and a big clinical trial, which, however, reduced excitement because it was absolutely neutral. So the question is whether reperfusion damage exists in the clinic, why there are so many differences between animal and men in the clinic, and to make a long story very short, the problem is that experimentally you know when you will induce ischemia. Sure. And experimentally you are dealing with younger animals, healthy animals, and so on. Sure. In the clinic, we do not know when the infarct will come. Okay. And we are obliged to act very late, after that the real infarct has come. And actually in the clinic, we do not know exactly when it starts. True. So that are the major differences, but there are solutions.
So how important is this damage? Like, what could be its consequences?
There are several consequences of the damage. The first one, reperfusion can induce arrhythmias. Sure. But I will put to you that that is not a big problem. We know how to deal with the arrhythmias, and I will put to you that that is a good sign, because the dead cells will not become arrhythmic. So that is telling us that some cells are still alive and we are saving them and they are reacting with arrhythmias. The second clinical issue is that we know that reperfusion can cause stunning. We know that the myocytes do not start to contract immediately after reperfusion. Sometimes you have to wait for, let's say, a week or even 2 weeks before you have a complete restoration or increase of left ventricular function. Again, that is something that we know can happen. We know we can deal with it, and if really the staining is such to cause hypotension and so on, we can intervene with a positive inotropic agent. There are, however, issues when, for instance, reperfusion results in no flow phenomenon. And that is a part of reperfusion injury, but that is unpredictable, and we cannot do anything about that. We can just observe it and hope that will not happen, because if it happens, we don't have any mean to overcome this.
So can we reduce the reperfusion damage injuries?
It can, and this is the big issue. It can, but at the present time, it cannot reduce by a drug, but it can reduce by an organization. Okay. Because reperfusion injury does not occur if we are reperfusion very early after the onset of the infant. Okay. Let's say reperfusion injury does not occur within 3 and 6 hours. Okay. So the message here is in the patient with myocardial infarction, you should not wait to reperfuse. You should, on the contrary, arrange and put into motion a system which allowed the patients to come immediately to the hospital. And when I'm saying to the hospital, I mean to the cath lab. You have not to stop and losing time at the emergency department and so on. Right. Also, in my city, because I'm from, ironically, my name is Ferrarri and I come from Ferrara, but Ferrara is a small city, 100,000 inhabitants, so it's a small village in comparison with your cities. Only one cardiology, which is important, so no discussion between between us. And we have put electrocardiograms in every ambulance. Okay. The diagnosis is made in the ambulance. The ECG is transferred to us. We confirm the diagnosis, and within 20 minutes, that is the main time, the patient is on the cath lab table. And we are the #1 in Italy for primary angioplasty and for quality of primary angioplasty. That is good, but it can be applied in a small city, in a small university city like Ferrara, where it was possible to do a long-lasting and big campaign to urge the patients not to wait if they have a chest pain, but to call immediately the ambulance. If it's not due to the heart, it doesn't matter. Sure. You know what I mean? And also the road is flat area. Sure. Different is if you are in the Apennines on the Alps of Italy, right, where it takes much longer to come and this, it did work. Because we reduced the mortality from 20% to less than 3%. Wonderful. So that was a fantastic success, and we avoid any reperfusion damage. Today, this is the only way to avoid reperfusion damage. Reperfuse as early as possible.
So that's the key message I think we will like to give to everyone. They try to reperfuse within 6 hours the maximum upper limit, but as early as possible.
No, my friend, you have to reperfuse within 1 hour, 1 hour and a half. I know that this is extremely difficult in your country. True. But you have to do something. You have to organize the city in district. It is organization more than anything else.
Can we think of thrombolizing? Is it also considered equally efficacious mode of reperfusion, or you are only talking about primary angioplasty?
No, thrombolysis is let's say less efficacious in the first hours than primary angioplasty, but thrombolysis is particularly good in a country like India. Yes. And I would really recommend. But even here, thrombolysis as early as possible. Correct. Time means saving myocyte, meaning saving life. with thrombolysis, several attempts has been done to add to the thrombolytic perfusion some drugs and so on. Unfortunately, they failed. They failed to improve late thrombolysis.
True. So I think that's a very clear-cut message to reperfuse as soon as possible to reduce the reperfusion damage injuries.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for joining, and welcome back again to India and sharing your opinion with us here.
Thank you for having me here. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. So you spoke on a very, very important topic on reperfusion damage. Does this entity really exist in the clinic, sir?